Yo, what is up guys, Ghost here. So, Battlefield 2042 is now officially released, and it's out on Steam, so let's go and take a look today and see what the Steam community are saying about the game. So unfortunately, it looks like the game has gotten mostly negative reviews. In fact, only 21% of user reviews for this game are positive at the moment. And I just wanted to take a look at these and see if these critiques are actually sort of valid or not. And then I'll go over my own thoughts on the game because I've not really, commented too much on this. And I mean, you don't really have to scroll far here before you find actually a lot of stuff that's copy and pasted. Do not buy Battlefield 2042. DICE EA know how to make a Battlefield game. They made trailers that promoted the game, and DICE EA inserted all the only in Battlefield moments into the trailer. They knew what the game is missing, all of the below features. And this list here, I think, is pretty much copy and pasted from Reddit. I saw somebody post a sort of missing features list over there, and I can't really, ignore this, although in DICE and EA's defense, they did say that they didn't, necessarily confirm that all of these features would be in the game, so I'm not sure you can really call them missing features if they weren't promised to be in the game in the first place. But I can totally see where this guy's coming from. I know what he's saying, all of these features were in past Battlefield games. Why have they gotten rid of them? I'm not overconfident. I'm just better than everyone else. That's a simple review there, quoting the voice line, I think, from McKay. That pretty much says it all. Just the direction of the game, the cringy voice lines. I did a little video on this the other day, but it seems really odd to me that, this game is set in this sort of post-apocalyptic world almost, where everything's gone to shit, the global warming has taken over, there's wars, and then you've got voice lines in-game with actual swear words, by the way, despite the fact that there's no in-game profanity filter option, so you can't turn the profanity filter off. And then at the end of the round, you get these completely jarring, converse voice lines from the specialists, just like, well, that was fun. I'm just like, it just doesn't make any sense to me. I don't get it at all. Like, it's like two different companies made the game. Look at the intro cinematic for the game. That was much more sort of seriously done with a mellow tone to it. Look at the cinematic we got on the Exodus ship with Irish and his son's there, and his son almost gets killed.
Tell him to get his fucking hands off of my son!
And then 5 fucking minutes later, well, that was fun. It's literally as if they hired a separate company to come in and do the characters, and hey guys, go and make us some voice lines for the end of the round. And then they came back with these voice lines, and they kind of went, is that the best you could do, seriously? And they were like, well, yeah, sorry man, that's just how it's going to be on release. Anyway, I'm going to stop ranting about the voice lines, but they're friggin' terrible. Now, there are some positive reviews here which are a bit more on board with what I've always said. A lot of you guys have been asking me, what do you think of the game, Ghost? And I've always said, I find the game fun. And for me, with a computer game, that is the whole point of playing a game. It's to have fun. And I do find the game fun. Is it the Battlefield experience that I was expecting? No, probably not. And I think that reading these reviews, people fall into, two different categories of why they're actually leaving negative reviews. The first one is that it's essentially a buggy mess. We can sum it up as such, and I think these are largely things that DICE will fix. So if you're one of those people, or you're suffering from bad performance, maybe, in 6 months' time or a few months' time, go and take another look at the game and decide then, based on the reviews, if you want to try it out or not. And I will mention here that this has been the case with pretty much every past Battlefield game that I can think of, really. It's always launched in a buggy, broken state, and 6 months later, it's fantastic, and then a few years later down the line, when a couple more games have released, people look back on that game as one of the greats. And I was talking to somebody on Twitter earlier today, and I was sort of saying that same thing. Will we look back on Battlefield 2042 in, say, 5 years' time as one of the great Battlefield games, even though a lot of people are hating on it right now? Now, that doesn't excuse DICE and EA from launching the game in the state that it is. Just because every other Battlefield game has launched similarly bad, it doesn't mean that that's okay. And sometimes I wonder, the fact that EA just don't really seem to be learning from this process. Like, if they just would have taken another 6 months or a year to develop the game, do it properly, and not rush it out the door, think of all the positive reviews it could be getting, or at least less negative reviews. Surely that would lead to more sales. And the only conclusion that I can come to is that maybe they just need us to test the game on. You know, maybe Battlefield is just that complicated a game with 64 or 128 players now, with all these different things going on, that testing this game behind closed doors, or even, you know, with EA creators and whatnot, maybe that just isn't enough. They're just not encountering enough hardware, they're not encountering enough bugs, and they just need to release it in as working a fashion as they possibly can, so that we can at least start testing the game. And that's basically what we are. We're sort of beta testers for the game, and then over the next 6 months they'll sort of fix a lot of these problems. That's the only conclusion that I can come to, because this keeps happening again and again and again with every subsequent Battlefield game. Now, the other half of people are the people who are hating on the game because of missing features and things that they just miss from past Battlefield games. Now, I am having fun with the game, like I mentioned before, but for me, if I could have chosen any Battlefield game, if this would have been a remake, pretty much, of Battlefield 4, I would have been stoked for that. In my opinion, Battlefield 4 is the best Battlefield game, but then I am completely aware that there are plenty of people out there who think other Battlefield titles are the best. It's a personal thing. Everyone has their own Battlefield title that they're happy about. I met a guy the other day, and he was really upset that there were no fortifications in the game from BF5, and that there was no attrition. I couldn't care less about attrition and fortifications. I didn't think that those were interesting admissions to the Battlefield franchise, so it just goes to show that it's a personal thing. And, you know, if you're somebody who was expecting this to be Battlefield 4 2.0, I'm gonna say it now, you're gonna be disappointed. That's not what it is. And if you're anywhere around my age, which is 34 years old, guess what? We are no longer EA's target audience. EA's target audience are 16-year-olds, 18-year-olds, 20-year-olds, you know, that kind of demographic, not people who are in their mid-30s and have a family and all that sort of stuff like I do. So, you know, it's not surprising that I'm not enjoying the game maybe as much as I did previous games from when I was younger. And of course, there may be some rose-tinted glasses stuff going on where I just look through my nostalgia glasses at Battlefield 4 and think it's the best game. But I do think that 2042 has potential. You know, I really don't think it's deserving of a 78%, let's call it a dislike ratio, 78% negative reviews on Steam. I think many of these people are just going and regurgitating a post that they've seen on Reddit, or something that Angry Joe said in his review. And whilst I do agree with most of the points that Angry Joe made in his review, I'm sure many of you guys have watched that video, and if you haven't, it's worth a watch. I would also go back and watch his review of Battlefield 4, because he was almost equally as angry at Battlefield 4, and look how that game turned out. It's now considered to be one of the greats. So should you buy the game at the moment? I honestly don't think you should. It's still in too buggy, too broken a mess for me to really be able to recommend, you know, a $60 price tag even for the standard edition. I would just give it a few months and see if those things change. Now, if you're somebody who is looking for, let's say, the jet gameplay of Battlefield 4, well, I really don't think you're going to find that in 2042. Some people think they're going to go ahead and like change the flight mechanics, and I don't think that's going to be the case. I think the flight mechanics in 2042 are the way they are for a reason. DICE have designed them this way to make them easier to use, and, you know, the days of having incredibly skilled dogfights and jet pilots up in the sky are gone. Like I said, this game is not targeted at us anymore. It's targeted at the younger generation, and the younger generation were probably like 10 years old when Battlefield 4 came out, so, you know, they have no clue what they're actually missing. I'd also just like to say, by the way, as much as it kind of sounds like I'm hating on the game, I do believe in DICE. I think DICE have a solid group of developers. I know a lot of people think that like all the old devs left and now they just don't know how to make a Battlefield game. I don't agree with that. I think they do know how to make a Battlefield game, and I think they're an incredibly talented bunch. But this just absolutely stinks to me of EA rushing it out the door, you know, just giving the devs an ultimatum that it has to be ready at this date. You know, cut corners wherever you need to cut corners and just get it out the door. I do not believe for one friggin' second that one of those developers sat down and used that in-game UI and said, yep, this UI is fantastic. It needs no changes whatsoever. I'm sorry, but the UI, I know I keep harping on about the UI, but it is just so goddamn terrible. And this is one of the things that will be easy to change because it doesn't affect balance in-game or anything like that. It only has to fulfill two things. It has to be functional, and optionally, it has to look good. And this UI does neither. It looks terrible, and It's completely unfunctional. It's convoluted to use. I just can't believe it that any one of those devs sat down, used that UI, and was like, great job, you know, whoever designed this thing. I'm almost certain that people stood up and they went to their managers and they said, you know, hey, you know, the UI needs work, this needs work, that needs work, you know, look at the full map, that needs work. And their managers sort of turned around to them and just said, we don't have time, just put it on the back burner. You know, nobody even uses the full map anyway, whatever, let's just get the game out the door. Probably because that manager had their manager tell them the same thing, and it's just come from the higher-ups at EA. So, you know, in a way, I do feel sorry for DICE that this has been the situation, because I know there must be that dev who's sat at home right now and, you know, he pointed out something that was wrong with the game that needed to be fixed before release. He was probably just, you know, told to keep it to himself, or that they didn't have time to fix it, and now he's reading these reviews on Steam for himself, talking about that exact thing that he mentioned in some meeting months ago at DICE. And he's just like, yep, see, I told you so, guys. So those are my 2 cents on the release at the moment. I don't know, this was completely unscripted, guys. These are just my, like, raw thoughts on the game. Like I've said, it sounds mostly negative, but I cannot deny the fact that I am enjoying the game, and I am having fun for what it is, but I'm not sure I can exactly recommend buying it at the moment in its current state. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. Thank you for watching as always, my friends, and I'll see you in the next one.